Are iwi doing enough to encourage their own membership to get into business?
Well, I think, you know, as we said earlier, we're kind of we're in a formative phase at the moment. It's just the tip of what's to come, and I think that you know, tribes are like any economic actor. You learn from experience. So there's a level of experience that's being gained, and there's room to try things and to do things better. I mean, my view of the tribal development model is essentially you've got to understand the nature of your loss or your grievance. You know, what was the extent of it? What was the nature of it? You've got to understand then, you've got to then secure your asset base and your property rights. You've then got to grow those assets. So, you know, you don't just go out and start trying to give back straight away, because the level of the settlements, the quantum of those settlements simply aren't big enough. So there's got to be a time where you grow the asset base, and then once you've grown that asset base sufficiently, then you've got to look at smart ways to invest back into your people. So that's my view of the current model, and I think there's a whole lot of opportunity at that late stage where you start to look at how you invest back into your people. Because you've got to do that. You've got to do that the right way as well. You don't want to be doing things where you're going to waste the what the American Indians called I think they call it the seed corn. You know, you never chew into your corpus. You're basically you pretty much using the interest to try to invest back into your people.
We will talk about investment too, but Rod, have you got a message for us?
Yes, there is. We've obviously got a plant somewhere out there promoting Unitec, because on this question of entrepreneurship, we've had an email saying actually Unitec's just started a Māori entrepreneurship course and enrolments are open now. So that sounds unbelievably like an advertisement. However, it's all true. But also, we've of course got two ladies with microphones here, one on either side. So at some point, if you'd like to, if there's questions from the audience too, and I'll keep you posted. And thank you to the Māori Party. Somebody is saying there on the tweet for linking us in via the webcast. So it's good to see that happening. So we'll keep you posted. Thanks.
Kia ora, Rod. And so to anybody in the audience, if you do wish to say something or you've got a question for one of our panellists here, just raise your hand, try and get my attention, and we've got one already. Kia ora.
Forgive me for kind of waiting it out, I was running it out too long. But my question is, I've just been listening and a few key words have popped up. Talked about foundation, education, qualifications, awareness. Also, that phrase that you stated, via about having to, you know, boot our own people up the bum to get out of bed and go to work and stuff. So, with all those words put into one pool, at what level is entrepreneurship made aware in the community as a broad scale? Also, we talked about values and stuff. Relating those values to successful people, i.e. athletes, they kind of tie one and two together. So if you think about the, I don't know, target pool of people being us here, for example, with tertiary education students, what happens to the kids that don't pursue this education? I think if you targeted at a kind of secondary school entry level, the attrition rate will be a lot smaller.
Kia ora.
And the awareness will be a bit bigger.
Lisa, did you want to comment on that?
Oh, look, I suppose I just need to reflect on my own upbringing and my own experiences, you know. Mum had me at 16, had my sister at 17, brother at 20, solo mum, benefit, Housing New Zealand home, you know, and to come from that type of environment to where I am now, being self-employed or had my own business since I was 28. What were the factors that actually got me to where I am? I must say there was a number of factors, and I really thank my grandparents for actually putting me on the path of education. They funded my boarding school education. I went to a Māori girls boarding school. That's where my Māori values were developed in the Māori girls boarding school environment. And from there, I surrounded myself with a lot of very very ambitious, other Māori ambitious girls who are very successful in their own rights. And being surrounded by those types of individuals allowed me to actually pursue the goals and direction. I knew when I was 12 that I was going to be an accountant. That was a decision I made when I was 12 years old, and I pursued that all the way through. And even going to university, I went to we had a support group for Māori and Pacific students at university, and without that support group I don't think I would have passed university, to be quite honest. So having that additional support and feeling like you are you can be Māori in a non-Māori environment such as a university certainly allowed me to grow and be the person I am today. So I can just only reflect upon my own experiences to be able to answer that question, so yeah.
Kia ora for that. You also made a comment about whether, if I heard you right, targeting more at secondary school as opposed to tertiary education?
Yeah, the first question was, at what level is this kind of forum or resources available to the younger generation? Because the discussion brought up...
Business Solutions are we're volunteer mentors for the Young Enterprise Scheme, and Andrea's, and particularly Andrea's been volunteering for low decile schools in South Auckland, so we're mentors for Aorere College. And I must say, testament to Andrea, we've taken them twice now to the nationals competitions where their business ideas that we've helped them to look at commercialising has actually allowed them to win national awards. And that's the first time that that's happened for that kura. And as a result of that, we only started with 1 or 2 business teams when we first started off as mentors for Aorere College. Since then, it's grown to what? 9 business teams. Why? Because success breeds success. When they see their own teams winning national competitions, that actually encourages and inspires other rangatahi to actually want to do the same. And so that's something that we're actually involved in. We're involved, it's voluntary because we're passionate about getting our rangatahi educated, knowledgeable in the areas of business so they can then grow and help their whānaus hapu and iwi. So,
if I can just add on that also, I mean, it's interesting talking with the principal actually at the beginning of the year, and they were adding on new buildings. And I don't know if you know Aorere College, it's a low decile rated school, it's a decile 2 school, and he's got new buildings that have just been built, and I was talking to him and I said, oh, I see you've got some construction going on. He goes, yeah, it's a real shame when the students want to stick around, you know. And he says, it's a real problem actually, Andrea. He says, because gosh, we had to build more classrooms because the students are staying. And that's so true, you know, success breeds success. And if I can just also share a personal story with you about how young does entrepreneurship start. I have a 20-year-old son who had his first little business when he was 10 years old. His grandfather and him used to go and strip down aluminium from lawnmowers. And they didn't realise, but there was actually a little bit of money made in aluminium. And he used to be able to fill a shopping trolley and get about $120, $150. And so what happened is it turned into a little bit of a business operating out of my father's garage, because he'd have 2 or 3 of his 10-year-old friends would turn up. And so all of a sudden what happened is that they'd turn up with all their gear, so they'd have to have safety equipment because that was so important. And what he did is he actually taught them how to strip down the lawnmowers safely. 10-year-olds teaching 10-year-olds. And then what him and his grandfather would do is they'd go out and go find more lawnmowers. Here's the interesting thing, and I go back once again about how far we've changed in 20 years. And that is my father, bless his little cotton socks, actually said to my son, Moko, why have you got your friends here? And he says, oh, Grandpa, he says, because they want to come and help, and, you know, they've got nowhere else to be after school, and at least they're here. And he goes, but Moko, he said, if you give them your money, if you give them a little bit of money, you're not going to have enough for you. You see? Whereas when he told me that, I was like, why did you say that to him? Because it wasn't about the money. For him, for my son, it wasn't about the money. It was about the fact that he could do something for his mates. Him and his mates could come over. His friends were safe. Nana would go cook fried bread for them, you know, feed them up, these little Pākehā boys. And it just came to the fact that, you know, they got paid for what they did. And I think that's, you know, for me, I look at my son now and look, he was part of this 15 to 20-year-olds who left school. At the age of 15, he was expelled from school. Quite a little entrepreneur. He set up a very successful cigarette selling business. It lasted 3 terms. Although it was cigarettes, I've got to say I'm quite proud of his entrepreneurial spirit. I do recall, though, however, when we went to the final Board of Trustees meeting, and I knew he was gone. I knew he was gonna. I knew there was no going back, and I thought, okay, how can I get some retribution for this? And so I said to my son, right, I want you. There's a whiteboard. Here's the whiteboard marker. I want you to draw for me, please, your business plan. So he got up, he wiped it all off, whatever. If it was important information, it was gone. And he got up there and he basically drew the map of the school. He discussed how he had monopolised it, and then there was competition. He dealt with how he discussed how he had dealt with competition in an amicable manner, to the point where he actually got paid a fee for allowing them to come into his area. He managed to talk about his supply. He also did up a financial forecast. He broke down his costings. Broke down his profit margins, and he was 15. And I realised then, oh man, I'm in trouble. This, he's not going to make it through the traditional education. So I had to find alternative ways to educate him. And now, he's when he left school, when he turned 16, he's been working ever since. He's been working now full time for 5 years, done everything from labouring to construction work. He rang me up 1 year, and he said one time, and he says, "Mum, get out the phone book." He says, "I've got copper wiring to sell." I was like, "What the hell's copper wiring?" So I think once again it comes back to that responsibility that we have around the table. Education has a way of being able to present itself in so many different forums. Formal education is fabulous, but you know what? Our rangatahi, they struggle with it. My son is a prime example of that. Does it make him a bad child? No. It just makes him an incredibly creative one. So I have to find creative strategies to educate him. And I think that's where, when you look at the people around this room and you look at those of us that have been fortunate to have made mistakes and we've somehow managed to climb out of that pit, it comes back to now, what do we teach? What do we teach you guys? Do we teach you what's in a textbook? Or do we identify the way that you learn and then find the strategies to educate you on the right path? And that's the key. That's the key to education. Traditional forums like this are essential because there are a percentage of our young ones who will absolutely thrive in this type of environment. But then you've got people like Christian who break the mould. In fact, he didn't break it, he just smashed it. But you can learn from him. And that's the exciting thing about where the Māori economy is going, where Māori entrepreneurship is going. We're breaking out of those moulds. More importantly, we're taking every single one of you with us, and that's exciting.
Kia ora.
That's the exciting bit.
Kia ora, Andrea. Thanks for that. Does anybody else have... Oh, we've got a few hands.
I'd just like to make a couple of comments about the Young Enterprise Scheme and the access to entrepreneurial education for secondary students. Auckland City Council has the Young Enterprise Scheme named as its economic development policy for Auckland youth, and such an eminent collection of people could perhaps encourage them to do some more about it, as they are somewhat reluctant to make any start on that. The other thing is that in secondary schools across New Zealand this year and next year is being released for the first time a subject, business studies, NCEA business studies, which will go some way to address this entrepreneurial business education gap in the teenagers of New Zealand, including Maori, obviously.
Kia ora.